Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Are there any questions before we start? So the last homework, so again, don't go away after the class. I will return your graded homework. I spent some time on Saturday looking at the homeworks. So I think, let me see, I think the main, I do want you to read, so if you lost points, read the solution. I did find few of you, well, the long problem was hard for some of you, but more importantly, I certainly don't want people to make mistakes in taking the S prime. So when you compute S prime, some of you forgot these things. So for example, to go from so this kind of equation, then you put back just S without this part, and that kind of mistake is really is going to lead to wrong results. So that's certainly not. That's certainly something you can easily avoid. Okay, that's easy to avoid. In problem 2, I think the real some of you at least the real problem is some of you took this as 2 terms and not 3 terms, because the S prime beta has to be evaluated at 0 as well. So 0 is one of the roots, the 0 comma 0, which is one of the roots. So there will be 3 terms instead of 2 terms. If you took 2 terms, then you missed some of the solutions. So the long problem, okay. I think I really applaud Husrev for being patient. I mean, it really requires lots of patience. Let me just quickly spend maybe a couple of minutes, but it's pretty involved for sure. So let me see. I think okay, so what we had, this is what I had tried to do, and I didn't really complete. But so I think it's important to understand how to take these basic building blocks, which are 2 by 2 and 3 by 2. So at a higher level, so for example, the first solution, if you look at, there are 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, there are 4 blocks. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of these blocks is at 2 by 2. So there are 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. And it so happens that out of these 3, there's a mistake here. This should be H1. Should be H1. So the second one should be difference H0 minus H1. And so try to find out what these H0 plus H1 plus H2 really are. So if you think about in this diagram, H0 really is 2 coefficients H0, H1, and that's the fast convolution of that polynomial. Each one of these is a polynomial convolution. Okay, H2 is H4, H5, and then H1. So this is H0, H1. H1 is going to be H2, H3. Okay, so if you look at these things here, okay, so H0 what was H0, H1, H2, this polynomial here, it's not a simple term, but a polynomial is now this whole thing here, H0 plus H2 plus H4 by 2. So try to understand this and try to understand the next one as well. So the outer level again is 2 by 2, and inside each, this is 3 by 2. So in this homework I've asked you to not draw these things. I don't want you to draw these kinds of things, but simply to draw these kinds of things at the outer level. Think of these as polynomials and count number of multiply, add, if it is possible. Not all arbitrary iterations are not possible, and that's kind of one of the goal is to find out there are certain conditions under which certain fast convolution algorithms can be iterated, and there are sometimes they cannot be iterated, and I want you to think about why they cannot, and so think about that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, so what I want to spend time today is talking about parallel filters and fast parallel filters. So when I say again the word fast means reducing number of multiplications, and we will see a very nice relationship with fast convolution algorithms. We have spent a couple of weeks studying fast convolution and how everything that we have studied is not wasted. Now they come into play and they can help us design fast parallel filters. So we'll talk about that as well. So a lot of times we are interested in parallelism. So think about particularly think about in well, there are many applications, but think about in optical fiber applications. Think about there are long haul fiber networks. So if you think about how I'm just trying to illustrate one application. So let's say this is San Francisco, and there is a long haul fiber network for 1,000 kilometers to Denver, Colorado, or whatever. And so these kinds of long haul networks are typically what are single mode fiber, and I don't want to get into those kinds of details, but the fiber wires, fiber cables, these are single mode fiber, and so these are long haul. So long haul networks typically make use of very expensive fiber cables, and then from that, so if you let's now so maybe there is another one coming to Minneapolis, but let's not worry about that. And then once you reach Denver, then these typically go out in what are known as multi-mode fiber, which are probably within, I don't know, 5, 10 kilometer multi-mode fiber, MMF. These are cheaper cables. So these are thousands of kilometers. These probably are maybe 10 to 50 kilometers. So depending on it, finally when you reach so these kinds of things will go to, let's say this kind of thing will reach one of the big hub in the University of Minnesota. And from there we might take 50 or 100 meter cables, or maybe even shorter cables. And from there we may come to Keller Hall. And so these Keller Hall might be using 50 meter cables. So there is a lot going on, and there are many IEEE standards coming into play about how the data is transmitted. So when we reach Keller Hall, our goal there is maybe to transmit data in 50 meter distance, is what we call the data centers, 50 meter reach, and we might be transmitting data at 10. So something like a small hub here, maybe 50 meter reach, and transmit data at 10 gigabit per second. When we are transmitting here, these are probably 400 gigabits per second. So These might be I don't know, 40 gigabit per second, and finally, yeah, these could be maybe 10 or 10 to 40 gigabit per second. So when we transmit data through these different fiber cables, there is a lot of distortion. There's a lot of distortion in the sense the fiber cables, just like any cable or any even wireless media, all of these introduce a variety of distortions. And especially in the context of fiber cables, there are a lot of distortions called polarized mode distortions. And there are other distortions as well. So same thing with wireless cell phones. If you use cell phones, you know the signal is coming through the wireless media at some point, maybe out of this hub or this hub, at some point it's transmitted to wireless media, and that point there are numerous distortions as well in terms of interference, carrier interference, or maybe channel interference, path, multipath, delay interference. So whenever we have all these interferences, we need to use equalizers. So equalizers have been well known for a long time to really combat the interference. So the very basic premise is that I am transmitting, so this is my transmitter, I am transmitting something that goes through some kind of a channel, maybe the fiber, maybe wireless, and the channel has distorted whatever we are transmitting, and let's say the channel has introduced some kind of a filter h of z, and this is the received signal, and then I need to perform the reciprocal of that so that I can undo the effect of this interference, okay, before I go to decoding. So there is some, there is information and there is encoding, and then there is little more going on, which is this, there is, if it is, this may be modulated to some other carrier frequency, or if it is wireless, the signal might be placed in 40 gigahertz band or whatever. And so there is a little more going on here, bringing the signal to baseband, and then we can do all these operations. Once we bring the signal down to baseband, we can do all this equalizer, decoding, and finally detection of the information transmitted. Okay, so it so happens that these equalizers that are undoing these operations are sometimes very long filters. These could be 100 taps, particularly in satellite communications. These are very long, like thousands of taps, thousands of coefficients. And so the idea is many of these, many times we are interested in parallel filtering for a variety of reasons. So one of the reasons you have to, there is no choice but to use, if you think about how are these fiber cables and the receivers here in the multimode fiber, after this transmission, how can these be receiving signal at 400 gigabit per second? Okay, so that's kind of, so at some point we need to do, so by the way, so one way to perform this 400 gigabit per second, that there is also parallelism at the wavelength level. So what does that mean? So if you think about simple coax cable, so if you have a simple coax cable and we are transmitting, let's say 250 megabaud. So if I am transmitting 250 megabaud, 250 mega samples per second, whatever the sample is, if sample is 8 bits, that would be 250 million times 8 bits per wire. And then if I have 4, if it's a cable containing bundle of 4 wires, then I can transmit 1000 megabaud. So that's kind of parallelism at this cable level, and same way here in 400 gigabit per second, if I have 10 different wavelengths, for example, wavelength division multiplexing. Some of you might have heard of WDM, wavelength division multiplexing. So here we are multiplexing in 10 different wavelengths. So then I can effectively increase throughput of data transmission by having multiple wavelengths, and same here as well. So so parallelism comes into really many different forms. Parallelism at these different wires in fiber media, different wavelengths can be multiplexed to increase throughput. But what we are interested in today, more interested in today, is talking about when we are going to achieve even this 40 gigabit per second. Well, I can't have an electronic system running at a clock speed of 40 gigabit per second. That's not how integrated circuit chips are designed. If you think about what is really a typical max clock speed today, max clock speed is about 1 gigahertz clock, let's say. And if I need to achieve a 40 or say 32 gigabit per second or giga samples per second, maybe gigabaud or whatever, then I need to have a 32 parallel filter. So, so the electronic chip has to implement hardware such that if I am processing with a clock speed of 1 gigahertz, but I can compute 32 output samples in parallel, that will then lead to an effective throughput of 32 gigabaud. Just like I'm able to improve the throughput with increasing the number of cables in the coax cable or increasing the number of wavelengths in a wavelength division multiplexing system. So parallelism is really an inherent part of many transceivers, whether it is optical media or satellites or wireless communication systems. So what we are more interested in today is really understanding how, so obviously it is easy to see how if I take a parallel filter, the number of multiply add will increase linearly with respect to parallelism. That's obvious. Okay, I mean I can say if I have a 100 tap filter, I want to compute 10 parallel, then the number of multiply increases from 100 to 1000. And what we are talking about today is really how to bring that number of multiplications from 1000 down to something else, maybe 500 or 600 or whatever, by this whole idea of fast parallel filter, which is an extension of the fast convolution ideas. Okay, so that's kind of what we are interested in. So I have been describing a little, so the prelude has been talking about why, and these are implemented in the real transmitters. These are $15,000 parts. The optical transceivers are very expensive because these are carrying data for thousands of kilometers. Sometimes might be underneath oceans. Okay. So before I go to the so-called fast parallel filter, we'll get to that, but let's begin with what is parallel FIR filter and what are these structures like. So, so let's take a simple example of a 4-tap FIR filter, and let's say I am interested in a 3 parallel a FIR filter. So Yn is equal to Axn plus Bxn minus 1 plus Cxn minus 2 plus Dxn minus 3. So this is a 4 tap, so there are 4 coefficients A, B, C, D, and we know what the structure looks like. So if this is the input Xn, then A times Xn plus B times Xn minus 1 plus C times Xn minus 2 plus D times Xn minus 3, and we add them up, and we get an output Yn. And this is essentially a single input, single output system. So we take one input and compute one output. What we are more interested in today, so to compute a 3 parallel system, we are interested in a system where I can have 3 inputs and generate 3 outputs, and what is now a MIMO or multiple input, multiple output system. In this case, the number of inputs and outputs is 3. So how does a 3 input, 3 output system process data and compute data? Well, I can say in my clock cycle 0, in clock cycle 0, I can feed x0, the inputs, 3 inputs x0, x1, x2. In clock cycle 1, I can feed x2, x3, x4. And in clock cycle 2, we can, 3, 4, and 5. In clock cycle 2, we can input 6, 7, 8, and so on. And similarly, we can compute in one clock cycle, I can compute 3 outputs, y0, y1, y2. In the next clock cycle, y3, y4, y5, etc. So, so what we see here is that this top wire is feeding samples that are 3 units apart. So you can see 0, 3, 6, multiples of 3. The next one is feeding multiple of 3 plus 1, and this is 3 plus 2. So I can write this as, in general, it's processing the sample x3L. Think about this as clock cycle L, then the input is x3L, and this is 3L plus 1, and this is 3L plus 2. And this is computing output y3L, y3L plus 1, y3L plus 2. So, so the 3 input, 3 output system is processing 3 inputs and computing 3 outputs. So if I could clock the hardware circuitry inside this chip at 1 gigahertz clock, then the sampling speed at which I can sample the signal xn. So the signal xn can now be effectively sampled at 3 gigahertz clock because of the 3-level parallelism. Okay, there is a little more to do that. I mean, I need a serial to parallel converter. If I have signal xn coming in at 3 gigahertz, clock 3 gigahertz sample rate, I need a serial to parallel converter, and this is now operating at gigahertz, and then the output needs a parallel to serial converter, which then the output can be then sampled at 3 gigahertz. So here I'm just skipping that part for now, but effectively it's sufficient to think about that we can effectively increase. I mean, the essentially, if I'm computing in one clock cycle 3 outputs, okay, so if I compute 3 outputs per time t, so think about clock cycle as t, okay, then that's saying that the effective sample period is t by 3. So, so in time t, I can compute 3 outputs. It so happens I am not computing them at 0, t by 3, 2t by 3, t, 4t by 3, 5t by 3, 6t by 3. but at 0 I compute 3, at t I compute 3 more, at 2t I compute 3 more. So that's why I need a parallel to serial converter, and it so happens that the serial to parallel and parallel to serial converters must operate at clock speed 3 by t. So, but I'm not getting into that now. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, so so how can we draw a block diagram which is effectively similar to this, but now computes 3 outputs instead of 1 output? Okay, well, very simple. Substitute n is equal to 3k, 3k plus 1, 3k plus 2. So we can substitute that. So for example, I can substitute y 3k, so that's the output number which is multiples of 3. Substitute n is equal to 3k is a x 3k plus b x 3k minus 1 plus c x 3k minus 2. If I substitute n equal to 3k plus 1, then the output y 3k plus 1 is a x 3k plus 1 plus b x 3k plus c x 3k minus 1. Oh, I forgot the d. Okay, so plus d x 3k minus 3 plus d x 3k minus 2, and the last output multiple of 3 plus 2 is a x 3k plus 2 plus b x 3k plus 1 plus c x 3k plus d x 3k minus 1. Okay, so those are the 3 equations, and we just need to draw block diagrams to input x3k. So the inputs are x3k. Let's say these are our inputs. X3k, we have 3 inputs: x3k, x3k plus 1, x3k plus 2, and we will compute y3k, y3k plus 1, y3k plus 2. Okay. All right. So what is y3k? So y3k, so the output y3k is a times x3k. So that's a times x3k plus b times x3k minus 1. So before I get to let me just talk briefly about so in a 3 parallel system, let's say. So we have 3 parallel system with 3 inputs and compute 3 outputs. So this is processing x0, x1, x2. Let's say some clock cycle number 60. What will this be processing? x3 times 60, 180, 181, 182. Okay, so let's say that I have this at clock cycle 60, I have x180. So let's say that at some point in this top wire, this is x180, and if I input that to one delay element, what will this output be? What would it store? Is it storing 179 or 181? What is this sample number? Any volunteers? Well, let's take a look here. So what would have been the previous one? So this would be 180. So this would be 177, 179, 8, and 179. Then this will be 80, 81, 82, and then 83, etc. So this would be 177. This is not 179. Why this is not 179? Because that was input to this wire, which is multiple of 3 plus 2. So when we draw this block diagram in a 3 parallel system, each delay is really corresponding to 3 sample delays. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. So a flip-flop, which we have been used to calling z to power minus 1 here in this so-called single input single output system, is representing one sample delay. I know if this is xn, this is xn minus 1. However, in a 3 parallel system, this each delay is 3 sample delays. That's because at any given clock cycle I am feeding 3 different inputs. So let's say I have a 10 parallel system and I have certain sample number x 173 and I feed that to 3 delays. What would be this sample number? Any volunteers? Go ahead. 143. Okay, why? Because each delay is 10 sample delays and 3 of these will be 3 times 10. So you subtract 30. So this should be x 173 minus 3 times 10. 3 delays, each delay is 10 sample delays, which will be x 143. Okay, any question about what I have said in this page? So in a parallel system, each flip-flop or delay or state, each delay is a state. We already know that from first week of the classes, is not corresponding to one sample delay, but L sample delays if it is an L parallel system. Okay. So now I come back to this diagram here. Okay, so I want to compute b times x 3k minus 1. Any idea where 3x minus 1 is? Is it in this wire, top, middle, or bottom? Bottom wire, because this is 3k plus 2, and if I delay this by 1 delay, this will be x2 minus 3. So how do I know? Because add 3 to that and see what it is. If I add 3, minus 1 plus 3 is plus 2. So that wire delayed by 1 cycle will be 3k minus 1. And finally c times x 3k minus 2. Where can I get that? Well, if I add 3, minus 2 plus 3 is plus 1. And if I feed this to delay, so this is going to be 1 minus 3 minus 2. And so that times c, and finally d times x 3k minus 3. And if you add plus 3, so that's 3k. So if I take this, delay that by 1, so that's 3k minus 3, and multiply by d, and add these. Okay, so that's why 3k. All right. Okay, so okay. So what about 3k plus 1? So that is a times x 3k plus 1. A times x 3k plus 1 plus b times x 3k. So b times x 3k plus c times x 3k minus 1, that was here, plus d times x 3k minus 2. And the last one, a times x 3k plus 2 plus b times x 3k plus 1, which is here, c times x 3k, this is x 3k on the top wire, and d times x 3k minus 1, and that is this 3k minus 1. Well, I can just take that here. So, what we have accomplished so far is that it is indeed, well, there is no reason why we couldn't operate these in parallel. We will see later on in the semester that any system that has no feedback, any system that does not contain feedback can be operated with arbitrary parallelism. I could implement 100 parallel filter, 1000 parallel filter, it doesn't matter. There is no fundamental bottleneck to increasing the level of parallelism because the FIR filter has no feedback. This is a feed forward data path. Okay, so that means this can be operated with arbitrary parallelism, which is not the case if the system contains feedback, and we will spend significant amount of time learning about that. How to parallelize recursive systems, that was all part of my PhD thesis long ago. Okay, all right. Any questions about this block diagram? So, if you think about what we have really done, we have taken, if you think about this as one data path, okay, so I have replicated the data path 3 times. So, you can think about this is one data path, another data path, and a third data path. So, if the original filter had 4 taps, 4 multiplications, 3 add operations, now this has 4 times 3, 12 multiply, 3 times 3, 9 add. So, I can increase the complexity by factor of 3. So, you take the data path, replicate it 3 times, number of multiply and add increase 3 times. If I want 100 level parallelism, I have 100 data paths like this. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, these number of so-called states, and we'll talk, maybe we won't talk more, but it's just sufficient to observe that the number of things, I mean, if you are running a computer program, and if you think about a software implementation, after all, we are implementing a difference equation, and the difference equation needs to be initialized with 3 different states. So, if I was implementing this in a software, and I had, of course, we assume these inputs to be 0 in the beginning, system is starting from rest, but if it was not, I would initialize these 3 states. In hardware, same thing. In these flip-flops, I would store those non-trivial, if they were non-trivial or non-zero, I would store them in these flip-flops. Now, it doesn't matter if you have 100 parallel or 1000 parallel or 3 parallel or 2 parallel, we still needs the number of states is still 3, that doesn't change. That's not going to increase with level of parallelism because that is the number of states. That's how many things I need to remember from one iteration to another iteration. So, it so happens that so-called iteration here was computing one's output, and the so-called iteration here is computing three different outputs. Okay. Okay. So, so for L parallel, each delay implies z to power minus L or L sample delay. Okay, so all right. So So, okay, so that's kind of a very brief intro to, that's not our real goal. I mean, I'm trying to introduce these ideas of parallelism, and we are, of course, interested in fast parallel filtering, and so we are getting to that. But let's, so what I want to think about, so whatever we have done so far is great, that's great. I have drawn this block diagram by simply substituting n is equal to 3k, 3k plus 1 and 3k plus 2. But let's think about a Z transform domain description of the same thing. Okay, so if we are talking about how do we obtain structure like this using Z transform, and that is there is a principle that's called polyphase decomposition. So if I want a 3 parallel filter, decompose the Z transform XZ to 3 different phases, polyphase. If I want 100 parallel, do a 100 phase polyphase decomposition. So each one of these is really a phase of the input. So what does that mean? So if the input signal xn has Z transform xz, I can write xz as x0 plus x1 z to power minus 1 plus x2 z to power minus 2 plus x3 z to power minus 3 plus x4 z to power minus 4 plus x5 z to power minus 5 plus x6 z to power minus 6, etc. So now I want, let's say L is equal to 3, divide by 3 polyphases. So if you go back to what does it mean to divide by 3 polyphases, that means one of the phase will input sample number 0, 3, 6. Collect all the terms containing samples 3 times L. That's the first polyphase. Sample number 3, L plus 1, 1, 4, 7. That's second polyphase. Sample number multiple of 3 plus 2, 2, 5, 8, 11. That's another polyphase. So group together these samples 0, 3, 6. That's one polyphase. So x0 plus x3 z to power minus 3 plus x6 z to power minus 6, etc. Plus this group together 3 times L plus 1. So out of that take a z to power minus 1 outside a bracket, and now I have x1 plus x4. Something is wrong. Z to power minus 4. What happened? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So if I take z to power minus 1, that's z to power minus 3 plus x7 z to power minus 6. So it was minus 7, 1 outside a bracket. Plus out of the remaining terms 2, 5, 8. So out of that take z to power minus 2 outside a bracket. x2 plus x5 z to power minus 3 plus x8 z to power minus 6, and so on. Okay, so so this quantity here we are going to call this as x0z cube. So this is no longer a polynomial in z to power minus 1, but a polynomial in z to power minus 3. So x0 z cube plus z to power minus 1 x1 z cube plus z to power minus 2 x2 z cube. Okay, let's think about what we are trying to say here. We are saying first of all that these phases 0, 1 and 2 represent three phases, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2. X0 z cube represents the sample numbers 3 times L, and this is the z transform of X3L. X1 z cube is the z transform of X3L plus 1, and this X2 is the z transform of X3L plus 2. So if you think about these wires, X3L, 3L plus 1, 3L plus 2, so that means the z transform of this is X0 z cube, z transform of that is the second one, sample number 1, 4, 7, 10, etc. And the X3L plus 2 z transform, that's the third polyphase. If you want to talk about first, second, third, or polyphase 0, polyphase 1, 2, it does second polyphase, it doesn't matter. So X3L plus 2, that's X2 z cube, contains samples 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, etc. Okay, so and then what is this z cube saying? Why this is not z? Why z cube? As I have alluded before, each sample delay or each state is not each state now is really z cube. So if you think about each state representing each state here representing z to power minus 1, as you are used to in a typical class, think about each delay now representing 3 sample delays or z to power minus 3, and each of these phases is a polynomial not in z to power minus 1. We can't have z to power minus 1 because if I feed x6 here, a delay is not going to give me x5. x5 is here in another wire. So each delay is really 3 sample delays, and that's the reason why we have this zq, because the consecutive samples in each of these phases is 3 samples apart. So if I have x2 here, then I don't have x3, it's x5, x3 is somewhere else. I have to find where x3 is. That should be polyphase 0, which is here. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so any time I have xz, then I can decompose them to as many polyphases. So let me begin with a simple 2 parallel filter, and then we will talk about 3 parallel and see what these things are. So if I have a 2 parallel FIR, so remember yn is equal to xn convolved with the filter hn, which means in z transform yz is equal to xz times hz. Convolution in time domain is equivalent to multiplication in frequency domain. So now we can write this as y0 z cube plus z to power minus 1, z squared, I am using 2 parallel, y1 z squared is equal to x0 plus z to power minus 1 x1 times h0 plus z to power minus 1 h1. So let me just say that I have dropped using these notations z squared. So from now on, if you see these polyphases, that's really z to power L if it is L parallel. For 2 parallel, that's z squared. So I'm going to drop these bracketed z squared terms because that's we understand. So I'm going to simply say y0 plus z to power minus 1 y1 is equal to that. But implicitly you should try to understand that all these polynomials x0 x1 h0 h1 y0 y1 are polynomials in z squared and not z. Okay. So this will be x0 h0 plus z to power minus 1 taken outside a bracket, x0 h1 plus x1 h0 plus z to power minus 2 x1 h1. Okay. So now if I equate the coefficients on both sides, then I get y1 is equal to x0 h1 plus x1 h0, and y0 is equal to x0 h0 plus z to power minus 2 x1 h1. Okay, this may not be obvious to you, because if I multiply x1 and h1, these are the product is going to be a polynomial in even powers of z. This is an even powers of z, and that product is going to be an even power of z, and that's why this is going to be even power of z. Okay, so these are the two equations, and if I draw that, whatever I am describing is not fast filter, is simple replicating data path. So if I take these two phases x0 and x1, filter x0 by even and odd filter h0 and h1, filter x1 by even and odd filter h0 and h1, and let's see, y1 is x0 even samples filtered by odd filter plus odd samples followed by filtered by even filter. So that's y1, and y0 is x1 h1, and this is z to power minus 2, this is 2 parallel filter, and add that to x, this is y0. So okay, so this is x2l or 2k, I think in the book I am using 2k, and this is 2k plus 1, some multiple of 2, which is odd. This is even samples, odd samples. This is even samples y2k, and odd samples y2k plus 1. Now what are these filters here? These are sub filters. These are sub filters of length n by 2 for a n tap filter. So what does that mean? So that means that if, let's say I had a 8 tap filter, so Hn was an 8 tap filter H0, H1, H2 up to H7, and that means H0 will be the even subfilter H0, H2, H4, H6, and H1 will be the odd filter H1, H3, H5, H7. Okay, so what have we accomplished so far? Each one of these is n by 2 taps. Now 4 of these, 4 times n by 2 is going to be 2n multiplications. Okay, so now if the original FIR filter required n multiplications for n tap, the 2 parallel filter, so if I had an n tap filter here that required n multiply, the 2 parallel filter as described here requires 2n multiplications. So the polyphase decomposition is really a first step, and then the fast FIR filter is the next step. So it's a 2-step process. Just describing the filter by a polyphase decomposition does not accomplish fast filter. Okay, and that's the next step. We need to, this is a pre-processing step if you want to think like that. So if I do the same thing, I may leave that to you to work at home, but so for a 3 parallel filter, if I write y0 z cube, I will skip this z cube, plus z to power minus 1 y1 z cube plus z to power minus 2 y2 z cube is equal to x0 plus z to power minus 1 x1 plus z to power minus 2 x2 times h0 plus z to power minus 1 h1 plus z to power minus 2h2. Each of these is going to be n by 3 tap. Okay, so this will contain H0, H3, H6, etc. H1 will contain filter coefficients H1, 4, 7, 10, 13, and this will contain 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, etc. Okay, so now you can multiply this. I'm just skipping a few steps. You can multiply this, collect the coefficients of y z to power minus 1 and z to power minus 2 and the term just containing powers of 3, and you will see that this can be written as y0 is equal to x0 h0. Okay, that's the first term, plus what will be the x1 term that will group with third polynomial. Any thoughts? Which of these products, 3 products, will match with y0? Any volunteers?
x1 h2.
Go ahead, say. x1 h2. h2, yes. Why? Yes. Because when you multiply z, so each of the xi, hi are polynomials in z cube, and when I multiply minus 1, minus 2, and that becomes z to power minus 3. That's why all these polynomials have to be z cube, z cube. So x1 h2 z to power minus 3. Okay, that's why this is the lineup. Similarly, I can see 2 plus 1 minus 3. So 2 plus 1 minus 3 is 0. That's one way of checking. y1 is going to be, so I don't need to include the z to power minus 1 because that's already the coefficient. Z to power minus 1 taken outside a bracket. y1 is z to power minus 1 taken outside a bracket. x1 h0, and check 1 plus 0 is 1, plus x 2 h2, so 2 plus 2 4 minus 3 is 1, and x0, and then what? h1 nonetheless 0 plus 1 is simply 1, 1 plus 0 is simply 1, but 2 plus 2 becomes 4. That's the next output. So minus 3 lines up with 1. y2 is going to be x2 h0, 2 plus 0 is 2, x1 h1, 1 plus 1 is 2, x0 h2, 0 plus 2 is 2. Okay, so that's, so now if you draw a block diagram like this, take this x0, x1, x2, filter them by the subfilters h0, h1, h2, and so there will be 9 subfilters, each n by 3 tap. So total number of multiplications is 3n, which is what we would expect. We are duplicating the data path 3 times. If you draw a block diagram like this and group them together, you will see exactly the same block diagram. You will find the same block diagram that I had drawn before. So this is really equivalent to this description here. Okay, so before I jump into fast filters, so let me just talk a little about this, describing this by matrices. So if I want to describe these equations by matrices, okay, so y0 is h0 times x0 plus x1 times h1 z to power minus 2. y1 is x0 h1 and x1 h0. So that's for 2 parallel. That's a matrix description of 2 parallel, and similarly if I want to describe the 3 parallel, y0, y1, y2. Okay, so y0 is x0 times h0 plus x1 times h2 z to power minus 3 plus x2 times h1 z to power minus 3. So I simply take this equation and complete the matrix. y1 is x1 h0 x2 h2 z to power minus 3 x0 h1. y2 is x2 h0 x1 h1 x0 h2. Okay. All right. So it so happens that these matrices are called pseudo-circulant matrices. Okay, what is a circulant matrix? If I have A, B, C, D, next row I circle D back, D, A, B, C, then circle C back, C, D, A, B, then circle B, B, C, D, A. So that's called a circulant matrix because these are circulating back. So in the same way, if you think about, this is called a pseudo-circulant because when we circle back, these delays are dropped. So this H1 comes back, the delay is dropped. Okay, so H0, H2, but when we circle back, H1 circles back, the delay is dropped. H2 circles back, the delay is dropped. H1 goes straight. Okay, so that's why it's called pseudo, because the delay, it's not exactly circulant. So this is a circulant matrix. So polyphase filters can be described by pseudo-circulant matrices. Okay. All right. So this is kind of a introduction to parallel filtering, how to design simple parallel filters by replicating data path through the time domain system by manipulating the equations. We have then talked about polyphases and how to use different number of polyphases. So if I use L polyphases, okay, so if I use L polyphases, then we have a matrix here which is L by L. Okay, so there are L squared elements, L by L pseudo-circulant matrix, L squared elements times each of these matrices is N by L taps of filter. Total number of multiplications is L times N. That's what we would expect. You take the data path that has N multiplications, replicate by L times, so the number of multiplications is L times N, which grows linearly with respect to the level of parallelism. Okay, so that's well understood so far. Any questions for whatever I have covered so far? I am now ready to quickly jump into fast parallel filter with all this intro, but any questions? So the key concepts that I have talked about are really the each delay is L sample delays. That's something very important to remember. If I have a 10 parallel filter and certain flip-flop or a delay element has x 29 at the input, then the output is x 19, not 28, because that was processed by another wire. Okay, so what exactly is fast parallel filter? So let's talk about the let's take the simple example of the two parallel filter, and okay, so I want to implement this so for a two parallel filter, okay, for a two parallel filter we have y1 is x0 h1 plus x0 h0 and y0 is equal to x0 h0 plus z to power minus 2 x1 h1. So the way we get savings is really to each sub filter is still n by 2 taps, but I can reduce the number of sub filters from 4 to 3, and then I can reduce the number of multiplications from 4 times n by 2 to 3 times n by 2. So instead of 2n, I can have 3n by 2 multiplications. And how do we do that? Very simply, you all have seen that many times. So I can write that as many ways. So there are many solutions. x0 plus x1 times h0 plus h1 minus x0 h0 minus x1 h1. So instead of computing y1 as x0 h1 plus x1 h0, so that these are two filters, two sub filters. Okay, these are two sub filters. Now I have one new sub filter, which is this one. Reuse x0 h0, reuse x1 h1. How many sub filters are here? 3. And now having 3 sub filters, the number of multiplications now is 3n by 2, because I have 3 sub filters. So I can describe that as x0, which is x2l filtered by the even filter h0, x1 filtered by odd sub filter h1, and add these two. So this is added. So I have x2l plus x2k. So x2k plus x2k plus 1. So this is odd. This is now filtered by h0 plus h1. Okay, and then I subtract this, I subtract that, and that is y1. So the odd output y2k plus 1 is here. To get the even, we take this, I need to multiply by a delay, which is z to power minus 2, and then add to that, that's y0. Very simple. So from 4 subfilters, I have 3 subfilters. Now what exactly are these subfilters? So if the filter was 8 tap example, just like here, so this is the even h0 plus h2, h4, h6, etc. This is the odd 1, 3, 5, 7. Now what exactly is this h0 plus h1? That is the term by term summation. So h0 plus h1 will be the even plus odd subfilter, which will be h0 plus h1. So the first coefficient of the even plus first coefficient of the odd, second, h2 plus h3, and then h4 plus h5. So that's the subfilter. So this is the even subfilter, this is the odd subfilter, this is even plus odd subfilter. Okay, any questions about how we are able to reduce the complexity of a 2 parallel filter from 2n to 3n by 2 by using a fast filter here? This is the fast filter. This is the 2 parallel fast filter. This is fast 2 parallel, not ordinary 2 parallel. there are many solutions that we have seen before. So, as you will recall by going through these convolution ideas, I am going to talk about next class how each and every convolution algorithm is a basis for a fast parallel filter. So, we will spend time talking about that next class, but let us just talk about another solution. So, I could also write y1 is equal to x0 plus x0 h0 plus x1 h1 minus x0 minus x1 times h0 minus h1. You have seen all these algorithms from convolution, and so if you look at x0 h0 cancelled out with minus, x1 h1 cancelled out with minus minus plus, minus what remains is x0 h1 minus minus plus x1 h0. And if I use that, then I get another parallel structure. So, I get, by the way, my former master student Dave Parker figured all these out, and now these are all used in many industrial applications. Okay, I should point out to Parker's paper, and Chao Cheng generalized all this. We'll talk about this also later on. Okay, so I can draw this block diagram again. So, I have x0 filtered by h0, x1 filtered by h1, and then x0 minus x1 filtered by, now this is term by term subtraction, and then x0 plus x1, x0 h0 plus x1, h1 minus that is y1, and the other one stays the same. There is no difference. So, this is another filter. So, now we have two different structures. As you look at these, it may seem like, well, I mean, the multiplication complexity is still 3n by 2, no difference there, absolutely no difference. From a floating point implementation, these are all same, but they have different finite word length properties. So, these so let's say, okay, so when do you think intuitively, I won't get into technical details, but intuitively let's say that H is a high pass filter. Okay, let's say H is a high pass filter, and typically a low pass filter is a smooth filter. So, that's so if I take some kind of a simple low pass filter like that, if this is H of n, that is low pass, minus 1 to power n h n will be high pass, and these will be like that. Okay, so a low pass filter is a smooth filter where the signs of these coefficients. So, think about, let's say this is 1, this is 0.9, this is 0.8, let's say as an example, this is 1, this is minus 0.9, this is 0.8, minus 0.7, etc. Now, if I want to think about, if the filter is a high pass filter, should I be using this parallel structure or this parallel structure? Well, if I take the term by term, let's say h0 minus h1, so this will be 1 minus 0.9, next will be 0.8 minus 0.7, which is 0.1. If I take 1 minus 0.9, that first coefficient is going to be 1.9. Next one will be 0.8 minus 0.7 will be 1.5. So, for high pass filter, use h0 plus h1 structure. Why? Because if I take the h0 plus h1, 1 minus 0.9, use the, so for low pass, for high pass, use the H0 plus H1 because then the 1 plus minus 0.9, the dynamic range is small. That means it can be encoded using fewer bits. So H0 minus H1 sub filter can be encoded using fewer non-zero bits. So in the case of low pass filter, use, so this is, am I making some mistakes? Okay, so this is ideal for high pass. So 1 plus minus 0.9. So when the signs are changing quickly and you add them, you get a small number, small dynamic range, fewer non-zero bits. If I have a low pass filter, then the signs are not changing, and then 1 minus 0.9 will be a small number, and then use this parallel structure for low pass because the dynamic range will be less, fewer non-zero bits. And this is better for high pass. Intuitively, I didn't talk a lot more. Okay, so I'll stop here today. We will continue this topic next class. Okay, so let me hand out your graded homework.